Und da will ich hier klar sagen, diese Maßnahmen müssen jetzt für den Fall, dass Präsident Trump diese Zölle aufrechterhält, müssen sie jetzt geprüft und vorbereitet werden. Wir wollen im Dialog bleiben mit den USA. Das ist die klare Botschaft, mit der ich auch nach Davos fahre diese Woche, mit der wir als deutsche Bundesregierung unterwegs sind. Wir wollen keine Eskalation, wir suchen keine Eskalation, aber wir sind vorbereitet für den Moment, dass sie kommt. Und dann lassen Sie mich etwas sagen, was unsere Arbeit auch bestimmt. Das Wichtigste, was wir jetzt tun müssen, ist an einer starken, einer handlungsfähigen, einer souveränen und ich sage hier auch an einer selbstbewussten Europäischen Union zu arbeiten. Da haben wir ein paar Schritte zu gehen, aber wir haben heute Morgen sehr eng uns mit der Frage beschäftigt, was können Deutschland und Frankreich jetzt eigentlich tun, um zum Beispiel die Kapitalmarktunion voranzubringen, dafür zu sorgen, dass innovative Unternehmen in der Scale-up-Phase auch wirklich unterstützt werden können durch zusätzliche Finanzierung. Das ist ein ganz wichtiges Element, wenn es jetzt dazu kommt, die Saving- und Investment-Union voranzutreiben. Wir wollen stärken den europäischen Patriotismus bei European voranbringen und auch Schutzmechanismen auf den Weg bringen. Und wir haben verabredet, dass es deutsch-französische Initiativen auch geben wird zur Stärkung unserer europäischen Souveränität, beispielsweise im Bereich der Zahlungssysteme, der digitalen Zahlungssysteme. Also konkrete Verabredungen, die wir getroffen haben. Wir kommen also mit der klaren Botschaft hier auch nach Brüssel, dass Deutschland, Frankreich, dass wir wirklich auch das Zugpferd sein wollen, wenn es jetzt um Initiativen geht, die Europäische Union stärker zu machen. Ich will auch noch die Gelegenheit nutzen, mich bei der dänischen Ratspräsidentschaft zu bedanken. Das war eine intensive, eine gute Zusammenarbeit, die wir hatten. Und ich wünsche Zypern alles Gute für die Präsidentschaft. Auf uns, auf Deutschland, aber ich darf das, glaube ich, auch sagen, auch auf Frankreich kann man sich verlassen, dass wir in dieser Zeit viel erreichen wollen. Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Lars. Danke. We are living one of those moments where Europe has to be strong. Europe has to step up. As I think we both agree, we're living through uncharted territories. We've never seen this before. An ally, a friend of 250 years, is considering using tariffs. We don't like tariffs, but certainly we don't like using tariffs as a geopolitical weapon. We don't want tariffs to be weaponized, and they mustn't be so. So we've had a great discussion this morning. Obviously, we're going to find ways of discussing it with our colleagues today and tomorrow. Europe has to step up. Europe has to be strong, and Europe has to make sure that the threats that have been imposed don't become reality. And for this, we need to be able to show that we're willing to use all the instruments we have at our disposal, whether they are tariffs, whether they're the trade agreements, whether they are anti-coercion measures. And what we want to say today is that France and Germany agree on the willingness and the absolute necessity to react strongly and swiftly. Also, this shows that we need to go further. We need to go stronger. We need to make sure that Europe deepens their power, deepens their market, and makes everything about the revolution that's taking place now an asset for Europe. We need a deeper market, we need more innovation on the financial markets and on the banks. And this is the reason why we met this morning. And we're very happy that we're going to keep on grinding to make sure that Europe remains and gets stronger and stronger. Nous avons eu une très bonne réunion ce matin à Berlin avec Lars. C'est évidemment un moment important pour l'Europe, et dans tous les moments importants pour l'Europe, la capacité de la France et l'Allemagne à travailler ensemble de manière proche est un élément essentiel de notre capacité à avancer ensemble. Les menaces dont on fait l'objet depuis maintenant un peu plus de 48 heures sont inacceptables. Lars a parlé de chantage, je parle de menaces. Nous devons évidemment tout faire pour que ces menaces n'arrivent pas en réalité. Et la meilleure manière de le faire, évidemment, c'est de montrer que l'Europe est prête à réagir de manière unie, de manière rassemblée et de manière forte. Nous avons des instruments à notre disposition, vous le savez, les accords commerciaux, les tarifs, et pourquoi pas les instruments de coercition, anti-coercition. En tout cas, les menaces qui ont été proférées sont clairement des actes de coercition. Les ambassadeurs en ont parlé hier, nous allons l'évoquer avec nos collègues aujourd'hui et demain, mais il est important que la France et l'Allemagne soient unies pour dire non, tout simplement non. Nous avons aussi travaillé en profondeur sur l'approfondissement du marché unique, l'approfondissement de la révolution technologique qui doit être une opportunité pour la France, l'Allemagne et pour l'Europe, et l'approfondissement des marchés financiers qui sont la seule manière de s'assurer que l'Europe puisse se développer de manière prospère, mais aussi autonome d'un point de vue du financement, York Kokis et Christian Noyer nous ont remis un rapport extrêmement intéressant. Nous souhaitons en partager les conclusions avec nos collègues européens qui vont permettre de s'assurer que la révolution technologique est une réalité en Europe, qu'elle est financée en Europe et qu'elle bénéficie aux citoyens européens. Beaucoup de travail à faire encore aujourd'hui, mais comme toujours, quand le travail est là, la France et l'Allemagne sont là ensemble pour le faire. Merci beaucoup.
Sorry, one after the other.
Herr Minister Klingbeil, Sie haben direkt angesprochen, das Anti-Financial-Instrument. Ist es jetzt Zeit, es zu benutzen? Und wenn ja, über welchen Zeitraum reden wir? Wann kann das benutzt werden? Deutschland war ja eigentlich zulässig.
Nein, es ist jetzt an der Zeit, unseren amerikanischen Freunden zu sagen, wir wollen keine Eskalation. Wir wollen auch viel unternehmen, um eine Eskalation zu vermeiden. Das ist die klare Botschaft. Aber wenn Präsident Trump das umsetzt, was er angekündigt hat zum 1. Februar, dann müssen wir selbstbewusst reagieren. Und da habe ich deutlich gemacht, da müssen jetzt alle Optionen für vorbereitet und geprüft werden. Und die Debatten werden weiter laufen. Bis zum 1. Februar werden wir sehen, wie die Amerikaner sich bewegen an dieser Stelle. Und insofern ist es heute noch nicht die Zeit zu sagen, das oder das. Aber wir haben ein breites Portfolio an Instrumenten und wir müssen auch bereit sein, diese einzusetzen.
You have the second question. Tariffs in 10 days. Is it the position of France and Germany to retaliate? I know that you'd like to prioritize de-escalating the situation, but there needs to be a credible response. If these tariffs come into place, should there be a response to tariffs?
Well, the next 8 days, every day, every minute, every hour, has to be used in order for this not to happen. If it were to happen, we've already said that we'd be able to respond. But the idea today is to make sure that we're credible enough, we're strong enough, and we're able to say no together. So this doesn't happen, and we're going to make sure it doesn't. If it does, we're going to have to do something about it for sure.
Across the European Union on this?
Sorry?
Do you believe that there's unity across the European Union in response?
Well, discussions are taking place. As you know, there's going to be a summit of the heads of state on Thursday. The work will be done between now and then to make sure that, yes, there is unity in Europe, because this is paramount to having a strong, credible response, is that we are united together.
So, du nimmst dran.
Okay, 2 more questions. You have the first one. Okay.
Sie haben gerade selber gesagt, dass eine Option ist, auch diese Vergeltungszölle, die im letzten Jahr aufgesetzt wurden, geplant und aufgesetzt wurden, nicht zu verlängern. Heute wird noch keine Entscheidung fallen, haben Sie gerade gesagt, aber sieht die Bundesregierung das vielleicht als einen ersten Schritt?
Ich will Ihnen noch mal meine feste Überzeugung sagen. Ich bin dafür, dass wir freien Handel zwischen den USA und Europa haben. Ich bin dafür, dass wir diese Zölle gar nicht haben. Dafür setze ich mich ein. Aber wenn jetzt als Reaktion darauf, dass wir für Grönland, für Dänemark, wo es um territoriale Integrität und staatliche Souveränität geht, dass wir bestraft werden dafür, dann ist für mich auch eine Grenze erreicht und dann müssen wir vorbereitet sein. Und Sie werden verstehen, dass ich heute nicht sage, das oder das ist es dann, aber klar muss sein, Europa muss das vorbereiten.
Okay. Noch eine Frage. Was sagen Sie denn zu der Nachricht, die Donald Trump den norwegischen Premierminister geschickt hat, die nahelegt, dass Donald Trump jetzt so darauf besteht, Grönland zu bekommen, weil er den Friedensnobelpreis nicht bekommen hat?
Ich konzentriere mich auf die Dinge, wo ich auch sage, da habe ich gerade Einfluss als deutscher Politiker. Und da geht es darum, solidarisch an der Seite Grönlands und auch Dänemarks zu stehen, deutlich zu machen, die territoriale Integrität, die Souveränität darf hier nicht verletzt werden. Es geht mir sehr stark darum, und dafür bin ich Roland Lescure sehr dankbar, dass wir Deutschland-Frankreich auch in Europa uns eng abstimmen. Und darauf konzentrieren wir uns, und über den Rest wundert man sich ja dann manchmal nur.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
would like to begin by expressing my condolences to the families and the loved ones of the victims of the train accident that took place in Spain last month, and to say that our hearts and minds go to them and to the Spanish people overall. I would also like to add that we're meeting today in light of recent international developments in a highly volatile geopolitical environment where European unity is of essence, where dialogue is of essence, where European coordination is of essence in order to uphold the core principles of sovereignty and adherence to international law. This is the first Eurogroup taking place this year. We're all looking forward to that, and the first one that I will be chairing in my new capacity as Eurogroup President. And with regards to the broader policy priorities, let me begin by reiterating what I said last December, that we have convergence, we have consensus vis-à-vis what those policy priorities should be: the savings and investment union, the completion of the single market, the strengthening of the fiscal foundations of the union, the digital euro. What we will be judged upon is tangible results, and we need to deliver them with nimbleness and speed. We need to render our strategy a synonym of delivery. And I fully believe that together with my colleagues at the Eurogroup, we can collectively reflect this, see a reflection of this at the working program of the Eurogroup with a sense of respect, but also a sense of urgency. Today, we will be welcoming Bulgaria as a full member of the Eurogroup for the first time, as they joined in January 1st. This is a testament of the collective strength of the euro area. We will have the opportunity to be briefed by the Bulgarian Minister of Finance about this transition, this state of play, and how it's happening on the ground. We will discuss the euro area recommendations of 2026, the policy priorities of the Eurozone, after receiving input from the European Commission. And we will also have a brief stock take on the updates on behalf of the G7. France assumed the presidency of the G7 this year, so Minister Lescure will have the chance to update us on the French priorities. Final item on the agenda, the ECB Vice President post. We have received 6 excellent candidacies. This is an unprecedented level of interest, but I believe that we have the institutional maturity to make tangible steps starting today in order to converge towards a single candidate. Thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to updating you on the outcome of our discussions. I will be receiving your questions at the press conference later today. Thank you so much.
Hello. We are ready for... It's good? All good? Yes, for today's election of Vice President to ECB, we have a very strong and experienced candidate. We believe in today's world with a lot of geopolitical challenges and instability. Experienced candidate will suit the position very well. Our candidate, 3 times former Minister of Finance of Lithuania, former member of Audit Court, and we hope for best outcome, and we hope today to have a new Vice President for ECB.
Can you comment on what we've seen from the Trump administration over the weekend, this threat of tariffs on European nations and possible retaliations from the Europeans? What's the mood in terms of what the response should be from Europe?
I think it's a little bit premature to say, but of course we have to be united in this threat, and we have to have our united stance against it, and we have to see how negotiations goes. But for now, it's a little bit early to say.
As a matter of principle, do you think that Europe can afford going in confrontation in case Mr. Trump chooses to acquire Greenland, afford it economically speaking and politically?
I think it's a little. I think it's a little bit early to say, but we see how the negotiations go, so how the process goes. But I think Europe is economically very strong, and we can find the solution with Americans.
I have a quick question on the anti-coercion instrument. So yesterday the ambassadors met at Coreper. Could you tell us how was the appetite on using this instrument?
I think this instrument is even talking about the usage of it. It's premature. There are other minor measures we can take first.
For example?
Let's wait and see what's on the table.
Do you think the latest sort of threats by the Trump administration raises the need for joint borrowing in Europe for example, spending on defense? Is that something, do you think that now, today, is more likely?
I think the need for common borrowing for defense, as a new example, there was a need yesterday for that, not today.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Last thing, I want to ask about something that was already for a long time in the news, which is the digital euro. The digital euro is going to be discussed in the European Parliament. We saw that some big banks still objecting this idea. What do you think should be done? 2029, is it realistic?
It's hard to say, but I think the digital euro is a good project and we support it. But when it might reach the finish line, it's a bit early to say. Thank you.
Quer fazer uma declaração?
Não. Podem fazer as perguntas.
Então, Sr. Ministro, como é que pensa que a União Europeia deve responder a esta chantagem norte-americana em torno da Grã-Bretanha?
Há uma proposta já da Comissão, que será agora discutida no Eurogroup e amanhã no Ecofin. Creio que temos de ser bastante fortes na resposta. Nós não estamos agora apenas a falar de uma guerra comercial, como falávamos há um ano, em que os Estados Unidos tinham uma posição sobre a necessidade de tarifas, a Europa tinha outra posição, enfim, discordávamos, foi possível chegar a um acordo, mas estávamos apenas, e isso já é importante, mas apenas a falar sobre comércio internacional, aplicação de tarifas e equilíbrios. Aqui estamos a falar de uma coisa completamente diferente, que é a violação da soberania de um Estado-membro da União e, portanto, a resposta da União tem que ser uma resposta de muita força.
Estamos a falar de coerção.
Vamos discutir isso hoje e amanhã. Há um Conselho Europeu quinta-feira. Eu não vou antecipar decisões que o Conselho Europeu tomará ao nível dos primeiros-ministros e dos chefes de governo, mas tem que ser uma resposta unida e uma resposta bastante forte, porque há linhas que não se ultrapassam e a soberania dos Estados é uma dessas.
Está preparada para defender o preço económico, para defender a soberania do outro Estado-membro?
Estamos preparados para atuar em conjunto, para avaliar as várias hipóteses, sendo que esta é uma linha vermelha que a União não pode deixar de passar.
As medidas que já tinham sido preparadas o ano passado para a guerra tarifária e que depois acabaram por ser congeladas são um plano B que está em cima da mesa. Há bocadinho falou de uma proposta da Comissão. Quer dar-nos alguns detalhes para percebermos o que é que a União Europeia está a falar?
Há vários instrumentos em cima da mesa. Essa discussão que agora será feita hoje e amanhã entre os ministros das Finanças dos 27, que depois os chefes de governo na quinta-feira discutirão. Não vamos antecipar soluções. Agora, não é possível aceitar que, ainda para mais, um país que é aliado da Europa na NATO, um país que com a Europa tem as maiores relações comerciais a nível mundial, possa pôr em causa a soberania de uma parte de um Estado-membro.
Mas qual é que é a posição de Portugal?
Eu acho que não vamos chegar tão longe quanto isso. A posição de Portugal é uma posição
A posição de Portugal é uma questão muito específica. Sabemos que a França é a favor da utilização, já o era antes, deste instrumento anti-coerção. Portugal alinha com a França, acha que é necessário já fazer avançar este instrumento?
Nós faremos essa discussão, eu não vou antecipar a decisão que Portugal tomará, mas Portugal estará sempre do lado do compromisso, da solução maioritária e da defesa da Europa.
Há risco de divisão europeia?
Isso verei hoje e amanhã na discussão com os meus colegas. Até agora não tenho esse feedback dos meus colegas ministros das Finanças, mas veremos hoje e amanhã essa discussão.
Mas a situação orçamental que permita evitar ou suportar eventuais impactos que surjam desta situação dos Estados Unidos?
Portugal tem uma posição orçamental muito robusta. Nós projetámos para 2025 um superávit 0,3. Eu já disse em alguns momentos que terminaremos com superávit ligeiramente acima desses 0,3. Se retirarmos tudo o que é componentes temporários do lado da despesa, também já disse isso várias vezes, os empréstimos PRR, as decisões judiciais que têm condenado o Estado português e o suplemento que pagámos em 24 e 25 aos pensionistas, Portugal tem neste momento um superávit real próximo de 1%. Isso deixa-nos numa posição mais confortável e mais robusta para acomodar choques externos negativos que possam existir, mas que obviamente desejamos que não ocorram.
Existem alguns setores em Portugal que são mais expostos às exportações?
Naturalmente que alguns setores de bens são mais expostos aos Estados Unidos, já tiveram um primeiro choque com a aplicação das tarifas, mas do ponto de vista económico, quer a nossa economia, quer as finanças públicas estão numa situação robusta, mas os choques externos negativos têm sempre, naturalmente, impacto.
Vamos direto para a CNN Portugal. Deixa-me fazer-lhe uma pergunta em relação a outro ponto da agenda, a possível eleição da vice-presidência do Banco Central Europeu. Sabemos que há um nome português na corrida que o Governo já apoiou. Pergunto-lhe como é que está esta questão, se mantém esperança, se pensa que pode ser hoje e se Portugal corre o risco de sair da corrida, neste caso, Mário Centeno.
Esta é uma eleição difícil. Primeiro é uma eleição difícil pelas próprias regras, porque aquilo que está em cima da mesa é uma maioria qualificada reforçada e há 6 candidatos. E, portanto, é natural que nesta reunião possa haver várias rondas até se eventualmente chegar a um candidato que reúna esses requisitos. Por outro lado, é uma eleição difícil porque quem está de saída do lugar de vice-presidente do BCE, Luís de Guindos, é um espanhol, antes foi um português, antes foi um grego, e há naturalmente equilíbrios regionais com os países do leste, com os países do Báltico, que é necessário olhar. Nós apresentámos a candidatura do Dr. Mário Centeno, após a manifestação de disponibilidade que ele tem. Apoiamos, como eu sempre disse, e aliás aqui neste sítio, algumas vezes, nós apoiamos sempre portugueses quando eles têm a possibilidade de concorrer a um cargo internacional ou europeu. Veremos a dinâmica das rondas de votação. É uma eleição bastante difícil, mas mantemos alguma esperança.
Sr. Ministro, depois do resultado de ontem das eleições presidenciais, qual é o perfil do candidato que vê neste momento para a presidência da República entre António José Seguro e André Ventura?
Vão-me desculpar, mas eu aqui não vou falar de questões internas nacionais da política nacional.
Mas já agora que tal? Candidato?
Eu não vou falar aqui sobre questões de política interna.
Ainda em relação a Mário Centeno, a maneira como fala parece que não está muito crente que esta eleição, que esta escolha, na verdade não é bem uma eleição, que esta escolha aconteça, e gostava também de perceber exatamente o que é que o Governo fez, de que forma é que se empenhou para que este cargo viesse para um português.
Repare, o que eu disse foi que, e o próprio Dr. Mário Centeno também já o disse, isto é uma eleição muito difícil, são 6 candidatos, o lugar foi ocupado por um português até há 8 anos, e há equilíbrios regionais que são considerados. Nós, a partir do momento em que a candidatura foi apresentada, iniciámos um conjunto de esforços. Eu falei com todos os meus colegas ministros das Finanças, com exceção dos 5 que também têm candidatos, porque com esses, obviamente, eles votarão no seu próprio candidato. Falei com todos, alguns deles várias vezes, sensibilizei-os para esta candidatura e portanto, esse esforço faz-se nos bastidores da diplomacia. O próprio Dr. Centeno também falou com os ministros das Finanças e com os seus ex-colegas governadores dos bancos centrais. Veremos a dinâmica da votação, é uma votação, porque depois no final haverá uma escolha unânime, mas primeiro há uma votação até que alguém atinja os requisitos necessários de uma maioria qualificada reforçada. E, portanto, é uma eleição difícil, é apenas isso. Peço desculpa?
Porquê que Mário Centeno é o homem certo para este cargo?
Apresentou-se a sua disponibilidade e a nossa regra é que nós apoiamos
Mas esse
português.
É o único critério?
Não, obviamente que se o Dr. Centeno não tivesse currículo para o cargo, nem sequer se teria apresentado à candidatura. Muito obrigado a todos.
The destabilizing effects of the recent geopolitical developments could potentially be enormous. That's why it's more important than ever now that we seek dialogue. This is a time for cool heads. We worked very hard at an EU level to have a trade agreement in place with the United States of America, a trade agreement that will ensure economic activity can continue to flow across the Atlantic, a trade agreement that is good for the United States, good for Europe, good for Ireland. Anything that now moves away from that or deviates from that could have potentially very, very significant consequences. So it's really important that Europe stands united. Europe will always stand with Greenland, will always stand with the Kingdom of Denmark. We will always stand together for our values. And we want to have dialogue in a cool and calm way and use the window that is available. But we will, of course, prepare to respond accordingly should that be required. Any questions?
Okay.
No.
Minister, hello. Minister, do you think that Europe can afford the price of confrontation with the United States, politically speaking and economically speaking?
So Europe is not seeking confrontation with anybody. Europe understands, and we understand in Ireland, that we can achieve so much more when we cooperate, when we collaborate, when Europe and the United States work together. It's good for the EU and it's good for the US. It's President Trump who in recent days has decided to threaten Europe with additional tariffs, ones that have a very significant destabilizing effect. The destabilizing effect could potentially be enormous. The cascading effect could be very, very significant. So now is a time for cool heads. We have worked in good faith with the US administration to put a trade agreement in place. We want to see that agreement implemented in full. We don't wish to see any deviation from that agreement. And it's very important now that we use the brief window available between now and the 1st of February to seek dialogue and to seek a way forward, but a way forward that will always see Europe stand with Greenland and stand with the Kingdom of Denmark, but also prepare for all eventualities. Thank you.
Goedemiddag. Heerst hier ook bij de ministers van Financiën de spanning rondom de mogelijke oplaaiende handelsoorlog en de dreiging met tarieven?
Nou, vanzelfsprekend gaan we dat hier binnen nu bespreken, want wat we nu zien gebeuren, het is onnodig, maar ook onverantwoord. Dat gaat economische gevolgen hebben, wat we natuurlijk moeten proberen te voorkomen. En dat zal onderwerp van gesprek zijn.
Hoe groot is de spanning rondom het onderwerp?
Nou, we voelen dit natuurlijk allemaal, omdat het juist zo onnodig is. Dus het komt ook als een verrassing. En we voelen natuurlijk allemaal dat dit ook weer handelsspanningen met zich meebrengt. En we kwamen nou net uit die fase waarin we naar meer een rustiger vaarwater kwamen. Ja, nu lijkt het weer terug bij af zijn.
Toch wordt er nu gedreigd ook vanuit Europa met bijvoorbeeld het niet ondertekenen van het handelsakkoord of het terugslaan met eigen tarieven. Wat zijn de gevolgen daarvan voor Nederland als dat doorgaat?
Ik wil daar niet op vooruitlopen. Alle opties liggen natuurlijk op tafel, maar ik blijf benadrukken in deze situatie, net als vorige keer, het belang van de-escalatie. Niemand is hierbij gebaat, de Europeanen niet, maar ook de Amerikanen niet. Dus we moeten als volwassen mensen de tijd benutten, de dialoog aangaan en de-escaleren.
Toch wordt er gedreigd met dit. Gaat het uiteindelijk ook de Nederlandse burgers wellicht pijn doen? Moeten we daar rekening mee houden?
Nou, een handelsoorlog is natuurlijk in niemands belang. Daarom proberen ze ook altijd te voorkomen. Proberen te werken naar lagere tarieven, hogere tarieven. Ja, in de eerste plaats betalen de Amerikanen zich die tarieven. Dus het is niet in hun eigen belang, maar het is voor de hele wereldeconomie natuurlijk niet goed. Daarom is ook weer het belang dat we gaan de-escaleren.
Dank u wel.
De opmerking van Trump dat hij dit doet omdat hij de Nobelprijs voor de Vrede niet heeft gekregen. Wat vindt u daarvan?
Ga ik niet op speculeren. Ik heb te maken met situaties als die zich voordoet. Nogmaals, ik vind het onnodig, ik vind het onverantwoord. En het belang is nu om de tijd te benutten om te de-escaleren.
Donderdag wordt er dan een besluit genomen op de EU-top over te volgen stappen?
Nou, het is nu onderwerp van gesprek hier, de andere eurotoppen. En we doen het stap voor stap nu.
Okay.
Minister, you're one of the targets of President Trump at the moment for this 10% tariff that we're expecting on February the 1st. What do you think the appropriate response at this stage is at the European level, and how much solidarity is there to act as in unison?
Well, listen, we see this as unnecessary and irresponsible. It's unnecessary because we are part of the same alliance. We make the same threat analysis. We are willing to work together. And it's irresponsible because it's going to hurt the world economy and it's not in the benefit of both continents. So most important is that we de-escalate and we need to use the time ahead of us to once again try to get these tariffs off the table.
And in order to de-escalate, I think what we've learned with the Trump administration, there needs to be a credible threat on the other side. Do you think that the anti-coercion instrument could be such a credible threat? Should that be on the table in terms of these discussions and negotiations?
Well, at this phase, I'm not going to talk in terms of threats, but all the options, of course, are on the table. But I want to have a constructive dialogue. We need to de-escalate, and I take it from there.
Okay.
Can I ask you on the anti-coercion instrument? Yesterday, the COREPER ambassadors met. How was the appetite in the room to use this? I mean, France is really pushing for this.
I'm going to discuss this here within the Eurogroup, and I'm not going to make any public statements about that. Okay.
And we made a bet once upon a time about joint debt in the European Union. You said that it was not going to happen. Do you think that the odds of that increases now, just given the urgency of the defense spending, if the United States is not a reliable partner anymore?
I'm looking for economic growth. I'm looking for stable international relations, and more public debt is not helping there. So you know my point, my standpoint there.
We'll see. Thank you very much. Take care.
Mr. Just last question. Do you think Europe, Minister, can afford this kind of confrontation with the United States, afford it politically speaking and economically speaking? Can Europe afford this confrontation?
We have to work together. That's the most important. So I want to de-escalate. Nobody's going to win in this situation, and that's my. I take it from there.
Who are you planning to back for the ECB vice presidency, and do you expect a decision tonight?
It can be. So we're going to have a constructive dialogue within the Eurogroup. A good candidate will come out of that, but which one is? I'm going to discuss it with my colleagues here inside. It's okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First, on the ECOFIN agenda, I believe that opening an excessive deficit procedure for Finland is needed action, and it is also good for the credibility of the EU fiscal rules. Despite our challenging economic environment, we are committed, we remain committed to sustainable public finances and taking, of course, necessary measures to comply with the EDP recommendation. Sitten oli.
Joo, tuosta viikonlopun tulliuhkauksesta Yhdysvaltain puolelta. Miten ajattelet, mikä on EUn oikea vastaus EUlta Trumpin tulliuhkaukseen?
No, näitähän tällä hetkellä juuri pohditaan. Tietenkin tiedetään, että silloin kun mikäli kunnollinen kauppasota syttyy, niin se on huono kaikille osapuolille. Sen takia tietenkin neuvotteluja ja dialogin kautta pyritään löytämään ratkaisuja, mutta onhan tämä hyvin hankala tilanne.
Onko Suomi valmis tähän anti-coercion instrumentin käyttöön?
Tästä keskustellaan.
Jos nuo tullit tulisi nyt voimaan ja kauppasota alkaisi, niin miten se vaikuttaisi Suomen talouteen ja sen kehitykseen?
Luonnollisestikaan ei positiivisesti. Tällaisilla toimilla on negatiiviset vaikutukset, kuten näillä aiemmillakin tullisodan uhkilla. Kiitoksia.
Riskin, että Eurooppa toistaa saman virheen kuin viime kesänä ja pelaa liian pehmeästi tässä ja tavallaan Trump saa lisää vettä myllyyn.
On aivan ymmärrettävää, että dialogin kautta pyrittiin pääsemään ratkaisuina. Sehän näyttikin välillä jo onnistuvan. Nyt on taas toinen hetki. Maailmasta on tullut tällainen ja teemme parhaamme, että siellä selviää. Kiitos.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to express condolences to the close ones of victims of a tragic railway accident in Spain. In this difficult moment, Commission stays with Spanish people. Talking about recent developments, obviously we will today also be discussing the geopolitical developments, where it has to be emphasized that EU stays in solidarity with Kingdom of Denmark and Greenland and their people, and for a principle of respecting sovereignty and territorial integrity of EU member states, and that concerns also Greenland. And also the tariff threats are not acceptable as a mean to dealing with those issues. We must remember that the transatlantic trade and investment partnership is the largest in the world, so there is lots to lose economically, both for Europe but also for US, its companies and workers. Therefore, we need to work on finding a constructive solution to move forward, respecting international law and also taking care of our important economic and geopolitical relationships. On today's Eurogroup agenda, I would highlight that we will be hearing the update from Minister Petkova concerning the Bulgaria joining the euro area and how the practical changeover is going on, because that's certainly a big step for Bulgaria and also a positive development for euro area, making both euro area and our common currency stronger. Thank you.
Commissioner, in the context of this, if the EU does not show strength now against Trump, how can anyone take the EU seriously as a geopolitical actor?
Well, that's obviously the important point. That's why I was emphasizing the need to respect both international law and also work on protecting both the economic interests of Europe and US. There are intensive consultations right now ongoing. As you know, later this week there is also going to be extraordinary European summit to discuss exactly those issues and deciding on EU's policy response.
But meanwhile, should the EU ready retaliatory measures such as the package which was put on hold and which will need to be renewed or come into effect in February, or the anti-coercion instrument?
Well, we do have tools at our disposal. Currently, nothing is off the table.
Even that this package was prepared for a different situation, and the situation since then has aggravated, are you considering taking this 93 billion package together with additional measures?
Well, as I said, nothing is off the table. There are currently intensive discussions and consultations ongoing. What is the EU response in this regard?
Commission threat analyzes these three willing to work together.
It's irresponsible because it's going to hurt the world economy and it's not in the benefit of both countries.
So most important.
Well, the recent developments concerning the questions related to sovereignty of Greenland and territorial integrity of Kingdom of Denmark. It's relatively recent. Tariff threats are even more recent. So those are recent developments to which we now urgently need to take a response.
Do you think that it would be a good idea to coordinate a response to this latest tariff threat together with the UK and Canada?
Well, certainly we also need to work with our international partners.
I'm going to discuss this here
Thank you.
in the Eurogroup, and I'm not going to make any public statements about that. Okay.